It was one of those bitterly cold winter mornings when the city seemed to hold its breath under a gray sky. The wind cut through the streets like invisible blades, and the few people who had to be out that early hurried past one another, heads down, hands buried deep in their pockets. Ethan stood at the bus stop, his breath fogging in the frosty air. His jacket, an old navy blue one with a tear near the pocket, was barely enough to keep the cold out, but he was used to it. Life hadn't been kind to him lately. After losing his job at the warehouse 2 months ago, he'd been piecing together small gigs to pay rent. This morning he was heading to an interview at a construction company, a chance to finally get steady work again. He checked his watch. 7:15 a.m. The bus was late as usual. That's when he noticed her. A woman stood a few feet away, shivering slightly, clutching her purse tightly. She was dressed in a light beige coat that looked elegant but far too thin for the weather. Her dark hair was neatly tied back, but the cold had turned her cheeks pink. She looked out of place at this bus stop, too refined, too polished, like someone who usually got driven around, not someone who waited in the cold with the rest of the city. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then walked over. "Excuse me," he said gently. "You look freezing. Here, take my jacket." The woman blinked in surprise. "Oh no, please, you'll freeze." "I'll survive," Ethan said with a small grin. "You look like you won't." After a pause, she accepted it with a soft, grateful smile. "That's very kind of you. Thank you." "Don't mention it," he said, trying to sound casual, though the wind instantly bit into his thin shirt. "Bus should be here soon." They stood in silence for a few moments. The woman glanced at him now and then, noticing his chapped hands and worn shoes. "You're heading to work?" she asked. "Hopefully," he said, half laughing. "Got an interview. I'm a little nervous, to be honest." "You'll do fine," she said, her voice calm and confident. "You seem like the kind of person people can trust." Ethan smiled faintly. "Hope they see it that way." The bus arrived with a loud hiss of brakes. Ethan stepped aside, letting her board first. She turned and offered his jacket back, but he shook his head. "Keep it till you're inside somewhere warm." She looked at him, really looked at him, and something softened in her eyes. "Then I'll make sure you get it back," she said. Ethan chuckled. "Sure, I'll hold you to that." 3 days later, Ethan sat in the tiny apartment he shared with his roommate, staring at his cracked phone screen. He hadn't heard back from the construction company. He'd done okay in the interview, he thought, but competition was tough. Just as he was about to put his phone down, it buzzed. Unknown number. "Hello? Is this Ethan Cole?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes? This is Sarah Bennett. You offered me your jacket at the bus stop earlier this week." "Oh, right," Ethan said, sitting up straight. "Did you ever get it cleaned?" "Sorry, I should have written my name inside it or something." She laughed softly. "It's clean. And still very warm, by the way. I wanted to thank you properly. Can you come by my office tomorrow morning? I'd like to return it in person." "Sure, of course," Ethan said. "Where should I?" "I'll text you the address," she said. "It's in the city center. 9 a.m. 9 a.m. works." The next morning, Ethan arrived at a tall glass building downtown, one of those sleek corporate towers that looked like they belonged in another world. He hesitated at the entrance, thinking there must have been some mistake, but the receptionist greeted him as soon as he gave his name. "Ms. Bennett is expecting you. Top floor." The elevator ride felt endless. He tugged nervously at his sleeves, wondering again what kind of job she had that put her in a place like this. When the elevator doors opened, he stepped into an office so spacious it could have fit his entire apartment twice over. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and behind a massive desk sat the same woman from the bus stop, except now, she wore a crisp black suit and an air of effortless authority. "Ethan," she said warmly, standing to greet him. "I'm glad you came." He stared for a second. "You're the boss here?" "I'm the CEO," she said, smiling. "Of Bennett Construction." Ethan froze. "Bennett Construction? Wait, you're that Bennett?" "That's the company I interviewed with." She nodded slowly. "I know. I saw your name on the candidate list when I got back to the office that day." He felt his throat tighten. "You saw my interview?" "I did. You were polite, honest, hardworking, and you didn't try to sell yourself with empty words." You reminded me of myself when I started. She paused, her tone softening. But what struck me more was what you did that morning. You offered your only jacket to a stranger without expecting anything in return. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. She smiled gently. That kind of character is rare, and it's exactly what I want in my company. She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a folder. Ethan, I'd like to offer you a position, not as a laborer, but as an assistant site supervisor. You'll train under one of our senior managers. If you're willing to learn, there's a real future for you here. Ethan blinked, stunned. You're serious? Completely, she said, handing him the papers. And please, keep the jacket. Think of it as a small reminder that kindness never goes unnoticed. For a long moment, Ethan just stood there, overwhelmed. Then he smiled, eyes damp with gratitude. I don't know what to say. Say you'll show up on Monday, she replied with a grin. He laughed softly. I'll be there, early. 6 months later, Ethan stood at a construction site wearing a crisp company jacket with the Bennett logo embroidered on it. He was no longer the man shivering at a bus stop, uncertain of tomorrow. He was confident now, learning, growing, rebuilding his life. And every so often, when he passed Ms. Bennett in the office corridors, she would smile at him knowingly. A small gesture on a cold morning had changed both their paths, reminding them that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can open doors no resume ever could. And as Ethan often told the new hires, whenever someone doubted their worth, never underestimate what a simple good deed can do. You never know who's watching or how it might change your life.